a classification of life, and it's the largest classification of life. And so there are 3 different domains. There is, sorry, grammar. Okay, the 3 domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. So the difference between eukaryotes and prokaryotes are that eukaryotes have these tiny cell structures called organelles, and organelles allow different processes to organize themselves in the body, leading to more complexity. And so eukaryotes include tigers, humans, plants, fungi, and protists, which are the 2 kingdoms that we'll be looking at today. And the kingdom is a classification 1 level below domain, so it's a little bit more specific. So quick quiz, what does a eukaryote have that a prokaryote doesn't? A, ribosomes, B, DNA, C, mitochondria, D, membrane. So type your answer in the chat. What does a eukaryote have that a prokaryote doesn't? So remember that eukaryotes have organelles, prokaryotes do not. All right, so I got 1 answer. Anyone else want to take a shot? All right, so Yo-Yo would be correct. It is C, mitochondria, because mitochondria are organelles. So it's pretty simple. Yeah. Okay, so there are 4 different eukaryotic kingdoms. You have Plantae. Oh, okay, one thing to note is that these 4 different kingdoms differ based on how the members get food. So plants, or Plantae, make their own food through photosynthesis. They also have cell walls made out of something called cellulose. Animals are heterotrophs, so we eat other things to get our energy. And we don't have cell walls. Fungi decompose things, so they break them down to get the nutrients by basically absorbing stuff. And they have cell walls made out of something called chitin, which we'll look at later. And then protists are basically trash. They are anything that's not plants, animals, and fungi. So it's a very loosely defined kingdom. It's just anything that we can't classify into the other 3, we put into protists. And so eukaryotic kingdoms, because of their complexity, are mostly multicellular, except for protists, which are predominantly unicellular. So on the diagram in the right, you can see how different the 6 different kingdoms. So bacteria and archaea don't have kingdoms, they're just also the domains. And then we have these 4 eukaryotic ones. All right, so first we're going to be looking at kingdom Protista. So kingdom Protista are, again, essentially everything that's not fungi, animals, or plants. And so because they are just because they're just like one cell, they're not very complex. So they have to live in aquatic and marine environments to acquire the water that they need to survive. So I don't know why I put that bullet there, but polyphyletic means that every member of a group of organisms don't have a shared characteristic. And so that describes protists because, again, they're the trash group. They're very, very, very small. Yeah, much smaller than us, obviously. And basically, most protists are just a cell. So in the bottom right, you have a image of common protists that you've probably heard about: slimes, amoebas, euglenas, dinoflagellates. Oh my god, I have a bad history with dinoflagellates. Anyway, parameciums, diatoms, and algae. And then here is the anatomy of a protist in the right.
Wait, do those protists usually live in water, like in places where there's water?
Yeah. So almost all of them live in aquatic environments because they need that water really close to them. Yeah, so great question. So the anatomy of a protist. So because they are this like incredibly diverse group of organisms that don't have a shared characteristics, out of all of the eukaryotic kingdoms, they have the most structural diversity. And so they are unicellular, but they do have organelles, which is what makes them eukaryotic. And so they can perform photosynthesis. They can eat other things and get food. They can make their own food and eat other things for food. And so key things to point out here that you usually wouldn't find in other eukaryotes. Notice how in the right bottom, there is something called a stigma, or also known as an eye spot. And this eye spot is very key to the euglena protist because it allows the protist to collect light for photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is carried out in the chloroplast, which is very typical of photosynthetic organisms. And some of them also have a pellicle, which is a armor-like thing that protects them from the outside. So these are some of the structures that you find in a protist and in a protist only. Well, no, only the eye spot you would find in a protist only. Oh, contractile vacuoles. Hang on, I need to explain that. Okay. Contractile vacuoles. So imagine that, what's a good analogy for this? Let me think. So imagine that you have like a bucket of water and a towel, and then you have another bucket. And then one of the buckets starts overflowing with water. To get the water out, you have to like, actually, no, that's a terrible analogy. Okay, I'm just gonna explain it how it is. So because protists live in watery environments, sometimes their body gets too much water in them and can cause them to explode. In order to prevent that, a special organelle called the contractile vacuole sucks in all of the water and pumps it back out. If we have time at the end of class, I can show you a really cool video. But yeah, it just basically sucks the water, pumps it back out.
How will it work?
That is a good question that I do not know the answer to. I will Google it right now. But how do contractile vacuoles? I would assume that proteins just make it so that the water goes in and then pushes it back out. So how do contract? I think it just, like, you know how you can move your body with muscles? The contractile vacuole can like suck in and suck out. And so it like stores water. Since it's a vacuole, it stores things. And then it can expand to get more water and then contract so that all of the water flows out. Let me show you a video on this actually. Paramecium water vacuole video. Yeah, okay. So my biology teacher showed us this video in class and I thought it was really cool. Oh my God. Oh, ignore the K-pop on this side. Okay, but you see this thing right here. How do I do an annotation? This thing? That's a contractile vacuole, and notice how it's like in and out.
Does it act like a flagella?
No, because it doesn't help you move. It only helps with the water.
Wouldn't the water push out and then they would be pushed somewhere else?
That's a good question. But I think at least in this case, it's not like enough water to like when we pee, we don't like like fly in the opposite direction because it's not that much water, so it's not like a jetpack or anything.
And does it act a bit like a gill?
A gill? I can see where you're coming from, but I think just because the processes are so different, I wouldn't call it like a gill. Is it a good or bad type of bacteria? What do you mean? Bacteria. So these are protists and not bacteria, but bacteria can be both good or bad. But yeah, see how all the water flows into this macule that expands, and you have like these vein things, and then like all the water is going in, and then it can like contract. I don't know. It's cool. Yeah, it does look like a sun. I love how it's just all K-pop. Yeah, I like K-pop, and that's why my YouTube recommended is K-pop. Anyway, so interesting discussion, but yeah, oh my god, hopefully that answered some questions. Going to speed run through the major protist groups. So first we have a group. Okay, one thing to note is that, I see the search history on YouTube. K-pop plus science, yeah, exactly. So one thing to note is that protists don't have like phylums and like all of that jazz, because all of the it's just very like tentative. We don't know much about it, and because we can't really classify them, it's just like major groups. So the first group is called excavata, and it's grouped based off of how its cytoskeleton is constructed. The cytoskeleton is a part of inside the cell that helps it maintain its shape and move. So some protists have an excavated feeding groove on one side, meaning it bends in, as you can see on the right. And so there are three main groups of these excavated skeleton members. There are diplomonads, parabacillids, I don't know, and euglenozoans. So diplomonads have no mitochondria, but they have these reduced structures called mitosomes, which are like mitochondria, but I guess less efficient. They have two equally sized nuclei, hence the name diplomonad, and multiple flagella. So they also don't need oxygen to perform cellular respiration like we do. Parabacillids also have reduced mitochondria called hydrogenosomes. And instead of releasing carbon dioxide like we breathe out, it releases hydrogen gas. Euglenozoans all have a rod inside flagella, so I would just assume that means that they have flagella. And euglena is an example of a euglenozoan. Chromaviolates are a group based on DNA, and so it was assumed to have formed when a common ancestor ate a red algae, which form of plastic. Okay, so its color is red because it ate an algae. Okay, we can go with the first bullet because I can't explain it well with the time frame that we have. But there are two major groups. You have aviolates, which are membrane-bounded sacs with no known use. They are grouped based on the presence of these sacs, but we don't know what they're used for. Stramenophiles are protists with flagella with hair shorter than. Oh wait. Okay, so they have flagella. They have two flagella. They have one flagella with hair, and they have one flagella that's short. So that's what you see on the top right there. Stramenopile. Okay, sorry, that was painful bullet. Rhizarians, my favorite protists. So they are also grouped based on DNA similarities, and you have the amoeba, the radiolarians, the foraminiferans. So foraminiferans are really, really crucial in like fossil record because they occurred a lot. And then circozoans, they have pseudopodia. So it just occurred to me that I never explained what pseudopodia is. Pseudopodia are fake feet. So imagine if like instead of your feet and bones, you just had like a blob of skin and flesh. That would be like pseudopodia. Yeah. Anyway, so you also have the Archaea. I don't think I'll have time for algae or fungi if I continue like this. So we're just gonna skip to fungi. Anyway, so what are fungi? Also, let me know if I need to slow down because I realize I'm talking very fast. Okay. Eleanor, what's up? What do you not understand? Okay. So you know how some bacteria have and some protists have flagella that help them move? Some of them don't have this capability and instead have pseudopodia, which are called fake feet. And pseudopodia are like, let me go back to a previous slide. Okay. So you see like these things. They help the amoeba move and scoot around, but they're not like actual feet. They just like help them inch and crawl. So that's why they're called fake feet, because they help the protist move, but they're not actually. Does that make some sense? Yeah. How do I get out of this mode? Oh wait, how do I clear? Oh, yeah, drawing. No, I just need another drawing. Okay, there we go. I'm not technology grandma. Anyway, so what are fungi? So fungi are another kingdom of domain eukarya. They include mushrooms, yay! And so they are characterized for being eukaryotic, non-motile, meaning that they cannot move. Protists can move, they cannot. They are non-vascular, so that means they don't have a transport system. So our vascular system would be like our blood circulation and vessels that helps transport nutrients throughout the body. They are non-vascular, so they don't have that capability. They have a cell wall. They have cell walls made out of chitin around their cells that helps them be sturdy, and they reproduce by something called spores. So we're not going to go too deep into that. Actually, we may, depending on the later slides. But basically, you have two main types of fungi. You have the yeasts, which are unicellular, and they live in moist environments. And then you have the filaments, which are multicellular. And we'll look at this more on the next two slides that goes in depth into how the filaments work. So remember, yeast, one cell. Filaments, many cells, and they branch out. So fungi body structure. So filaments, because they are like roots, they enhance a fungi's ability to grow and absorb nutrients since they don't have a vascular system to transport nutrients. So Isabella just asked, is it true that fungi can cure disease? Is it causes diseases? Are you asking if like fungi can both cure disease and cause disease? Yeah, okay. So I don't think it can like cure its own disease that it causes, but fungi are actually, let me actually go into the previous slide or the next few slides. Okay, never mind. There's not much explaining this. But yeah, fungi are really, really important, not important, but like harmful pathogens, and they cause a lot of diseases. Like one time, like all of the wheat across America was like wiped out because of a fungi. But you guys know penicillin? that came from a fungi. So like it can both have like healing properties and also like harmful properties. Yeah, okay, so Rahul gave a great example. Some fungi can cure conditions like septicemia, and I don't even know what that is. Yeah, so fungi have a lot of uses. All right, so fungi also have a tiny network of filaments called, or a network of tiny filaments called hyphae. And so these hyphae are like tubes that run through the ground, and they are made out of chitin, which is the polymer or the material special to fungi. And so hyphae form a mass called a mycelium. So think of like the entirety of a plant's roots as a mycelium. So another thing is like hyphae is to roots as fungi is to plants. That's a good way to think about it. And fun fact, 1 centimeter cubed of soil may have over 1 kilometer of hyphae with surface area 300 centimeters cubed in it. So that's a lot. And so this helps fungi. Yeah, it is. It's a lot, but they're really thin. So chitin is harder to pronounce than peptidoglycan. Really? Surface area or volume? I think because they are so thin that they call it surface area, but I see your point and I realize that's really small brain. So I will change that to like square. Yeah, I've heard people pronounce chitin like chitin. My bio teacher likes to call it chitin to piss us off. But I find it harder to pronounce peptidoglycan because I always say peptidoglycan. Anyway, so okay, so inside these hyphae, you have something called cytoplasmic streaming, which just means that it's not separated by a cell wall. Instead, they are divided by incomplete walls called septa. Okay, I had my science bowl regionals this Saturday, and like I was writing this lesson plan, and I was writing like septa, and there was a question about septa, and I got it because of Sage. Oh my god. Anyway, that was just like a whoa moment for me. Because if I was not writing this, yeah. But yeah, you're right. So for the squared and thanks, Eleanor. We did not win, but you know, that's beside the point. All right. So I'm scared of physics because of sci-fi. Why? Are you responsible for physics? It became math halfway through. Science school is fun, but it's also so scary. Like some of the math questions just seem impossible to do. Bro, physics science school math questions are like, Alan is 200 centimeters tall. Gravity is 10 meters per second. What is the mass of the sun? Oh, yeah. I really don't like the hand raise format. Like, man drops over, didn't need to drop to survive. Oh my god. Yeah, but anyway, science feels wild. So if fungi has no septa, then that means that it has no walls, and it's called cenocytic. Yeah, just like a diagram of fungi and general stuff, fun to look at. I'll stay on here for like a few more seconds. Okay. All right, so specialized hyphae. Let me see what type it is. All right, so some fungi have special hyphae that allows okay, so some fungi are parasites. So they need this hyphae to allow them to steal food from the hosts of their infection. So an example of this would be Historia, which is a relationship where fungi use hyphae to extract nutrients from plant hosts. You also have mycorrhizae, which is a relationship or mutualism where both parties benefit between plant roots and fungi. So the fungi help the plants get more nutrients, and the plants get stuff back. So there are two types of mycorrhizae. You have the ectomycorrhizal fungi, where the sheaths cover the roots. So, and then you have the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, where the hyphae like goes into the cell wall. And almost all plants have mycorrhizae, which is insane if you think about it. And yeah, that's pretty much it on this slide. Okay. Major fungal groups. So first, we already touched on this a little, but we have the yeast. So yeast are less like a group and more like a lifestyle. So like, it's not like humans as so much as like couch potato, which is like a sub lifestyle of humans. And so they grow in moist environments. They are unicellular. They are free living. So that means that they're not attached to anything, and they grow really, really fast, just like E. coli, which is why we can use them as model organisms. Many different kinds of fungi. You have the parasites, the decomposers, the pathogens, mutualistic fungi, which means that they help other animals, like lichen. So lichen is actually not like a fungi, but a relationship between a fungi and a plant where the fungi grow on top of it. So like the green stuff that you see all over bark, that's fungi breaking it down. Yeah, so fungi usually reproduce asexually through something called budding, which means that like one body part turns into more fungi, but there aren't like sexes, but there are different mating types, and two specimens with the same mating type within one species can't mate with each other, which prevents self-fertilization. So going away from all of these non-official categorizations, fungi actually have phylums. So our first, Microsporidia isn't a phylum, it's just a group, but they include unicellular obligate parasites. So that means that they have to have a host to survive. They are the smallest known eukaryotes, and they have nothing. They don't have mitochondria, mitosomes, and so they don't have mitochondrial DNA, but they do have regular DNA, beware of that. Chytrids, they are aquatic microorganisms, and the main thing is that their flagella, they have the same sperm as human sperm in that like you have like the sperm and then you have a tail. That's what is unique about human sperm and also chytrid sperm. So yeah, I thought that was cool. How many slides do we have left? All right, cool, we can get through this. So other major fungi groups are mostly terrestrial. So that means they live on land and they reproduce by fusing their cells together, and then they fuse their nucleus, which has all of the DNA together, through something called karyogamy. Zygospore, which is an actual phylum. This means that, so fungi of this phylum, they have adjacent hyphae that grow towards each other, and then when they meet, they mate, and then a new zygospore forms, and the zygospore turns into more fungi. Glomeromycetes are examples of arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, so they have relationships with plants. Archaea, this is a group, not a phylum, but it includes two phylums, the club fungi and the sac fungi, and within this group, plasmogamy, which is the fusing of cytoplasms and cells, occurs long before the nucleus is actual fuse. So in a lot of its life, these fungi actually have two nuclei, which is why they're called dikarya. So sac fungi have something called sacs, or sac fungi have asci, which are sacs, which help them reproduce sexually. Examples would include yeast, baker's yeast, the one that we're familiar with that makes bread, And we also have mold and penicillin, which is an antibiotic. And then we also have club fungi, also known as Mycota. Mycota is the phylum for mushrooms. And the Vaccinium is like the swollen top tip. And then you have some more pictures of cool fungi. So this guy on the right, this image is actually drawn by it's an illustration, so it's not like a photo or anything, and it's by someone named Ernst Hinkle, and he's my role model, which is why I included it. Anyways, book it time.